By the way, Ant, we are almost at 2,000 subscribers on Team 980's YouTube page. So, if you're not subscribed yet, what is it that you are waiting for? We stream the show live every single day, all 3 hours or 2 hours and 45 minutes as it be this week. So make sure that you check us out there. You're driving home, all that. You get home, and you could turn on a national sports show, or you could just keep listening to the show that you want to listen to anyway. And there'll be me and one box and Anthony in the other box, and we'll be like, hi, hello, we're talking sports. So as you pull into your driveway or your apartment building or wherever it is that you park your car, go home, fire up your smart TV. Or, of course, you can say, hey, Alexa, play the Team 980, and you can listen to the show that way as well, courtesy of the Odyssey app, which is now Alexa enabled. Very cool. All right, Anthony, you found an interesting little clip on the old interwebs from NFL Live today on a couple of my favorite analysts and their thoughts on where the Commanders should go at the quarterback position with a very long-term view of things. Mina, Dan Orlovsky, take it away on NFL Live.
I don't think the question is which quarterback fits with Kliff Kingsbury, who's their offensive coordinator. I think the question you need to be asking is, how is Kliff Kingsbury going to adapt his offense to suit a rookie quarterback? Because from what we saw in Arizona from 2019 through 2022, there were a lot of flaws. I'll just point to one thing. During that period, Dan, Kliff Kingsbury's offense ranked dead last in the NFL in use of motion. If you aren't using motion in today's NFL to give your quarterback information, to create, we talk about all the time, I know, to create leverage and spacing, I feel like you're lacking in assisting, and it's an oversimplification. There's a lot of factors in that, but I don't think the Washington Commanders should be drafting thinking about who best suits what we've seen from Kliff in the past.
Okay, totally agree on that point. If we're being honest, the quarterback that best suits what Kliff wants to do is Caleb Williams, just because of the point guard element, catch and throw, and also the ability to run. I do not think that the best, at least plug and play person is Jaden Daniels. Jaden comes from a place that they did use a ton of shifting. They did use a ton of motion at LSU. The other quarterback that I think makes a ton of sense, and it's probably not at 2, is the guy that you just talked about, Bo Nix. Bo Nix is really a point guard. That's really what he developed to become in Oregon. So I know that's not where they're going to get slotted, but to Mina's point, if it's about Kliff and Washington, those are the 2 best players that you want to take and just plug and play into that offense.
So that is a pretty fascinating like thought process that injects a new angle into this months-long discussion of who is the best fit for the Commanders at number 2, Anthony. And I think it is, and we just heard like a minute and a half here, and I would love to have this conversation with Dan and or Mina on a much longer, radio or podcast length discussion. Open invitation, guys and gals, to come on the show. But I think Kliff's offense will evolve. And I was talking about this with Mark Bullock the other day, where he went back and watched, obviously, a lot of Kliff in Arizona, as Mark, former Washington Post and Athletic writer who dives into the X's and O's and has been on the show and has been on the podcast and does our YouTube live streams and the whole deal. And Mark, he said, towards the end of Kliff's time in Arizona, he saw some shifting elements in Kliff's offense. Shifting as in like the offense was changing, not as in motions and shifts. And they started to add some more West Coast style solutions to certain problems. And they started to change up how they ran some things that were maybe better fits with NFL or their own personnel in Arizona than the way Kliff had done things previously in the air raid and in college, et cetera, et cetera. And so the offense grew and evolved year over year in Arizona. And it's why I think a lot of people are high on Kliff and what he can potentially do here in D.C. with the additions of Anthony Lynn, with the additions of Brian Johnson, which I think it's part of the reason why projecting who Washington is going to take at number 2, it's part of the reason why that is so freaking difficult is there are elements to all of these guys that I really like that I think fit well. By the way, like I don't hate the Knicks shout from Orlovsky. I would much prefer taking one of the top 4 guys. Obviously, Caleb is the best guy because he's the best guy. But like Drake can do some of the catch and throw stuff. He's got some of the physical tools that I think would be really good in this offense. He's done some of the RPO stuff. He's familiar with a lot of the concepts. And obviously the upside arm talent is great. He also is a guy that can scramble at a really, really high level, and he throws well on the run, where Jaden Daniels doesn't really throw a lot on the run, but has the big deep ball arm or deep ball accuracy. Like his numbers on shots 20-plus yards down the field are preposterous, Ant. And then he's obviously got the running ability that you can do some design quarterback run stuff if you want to. And then J.J. McCarthy, again, his mental processing's really high. He's got a good arm. He throws it well over the middle. He's throwing a bunch of tight windows. He can throw really well on the run. Like, there's a lot to like there as well. And so, when you look at what Kliff did in Arizona, I think what we're going to find out pretty quick here is how much of that was him adapting to what Kyler Murray wanted, and how much of that does he change because Kyler Murray is no longer his quarterback, to involve whether it's shifts in motions, whether it's to involve more or less West Coast elements, or Air Coryell elements, or air raid elements, gap scheme, zone, running stuff, marrying play action and pass concepts. Like, there's so much runway here for him that is both exciting and terrifying, because it could either take off or it could just be a whole big mushy offense that never actually gets off the ground.
And this is why I also just like the Kliff Kingsbury hire in general, just because of the experience that he's had, not only as a play caller, but also as a head coach, and the fact that he's young. So I think he understands that you can't just stick to the status quo. You got to be able to, evolve with the game, like, over periods of time. So you can incorporate what you learned in the past, but also keep up with the present. And I think he has, like, just full autonomy to, like, do whatever. And, hopefully he can figure out, how best to, organize his offense to best suit whoever we end up drafting. So a lot to, work with, I guess, like, based on, like, whoever we end up taking.
Totally. And I do think that's a great point by Mina. Like, he's got to make sure that he gives this young quarterback solutions. And that has kind of been what he's known for, is like making quarterbacks' lives easier. But hasn't used one of the main tools that a lot of modern NFL offenses use, which is the motions and the shifts and all that kind of stuff, to kind of break down some of the disguises and shells that defenses use to make things difficult, especially on young quarterbacks, but on all quarterbacks in the league. And so, with Brian Johnson, with Anthony Lynn, how much stuff do they? Lynn has done some of that certainly in his time. Johnson, they do some of that stuff in Philadelphia. But there also are elements of just like, hey, let's line up and play. And there are quarterbacks who like that. So I think it's also incumbent on the quarterback to be able to handle that stuff and be able to adapt as a defense moves and shifts with your own motions and shifts, and see through whatever disguise they're trying to play, and ultimately make sure that their eyes are going the right place so that they can deliver the football on time and on target. So there's a lot there. Like, playing quarterback is hard, but it's the OC's job to make it easier. And Kliff adapting to whatever level of complexity that the young quarterback can handle, and then hopefully evolving it to be more complex and handle more stuff to make their jobs easier over time is the job. If they do that well, they'll be successful. If they won't, Kliff will get fired, everyone else will get fired, and the young quarterback will be yet another person on a list of failed Washington quarterbacks over the last all the years.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.